Our grammar rule today is titled as relative clauses. I think most of you know well the relative clauses because we have studied this grammar rule in previous years. So let's start reading. Relative clauses are introduced by relative pronouns. The relative pronouns which we will use during this grammar section are who, that, which, whose. So to know how to use them correctly, let's consider these two examples which are written in front of us. The first one is this is Tom, full stop. He plays tennis well, and he asks us to use who as a relative pronoun. So here the answer will be this is Tom who, or we can use that also, plays. This is Tom who or that plays tennis well. I think most of you will ask me, what did we do to have this answer? Okay, so let's explain what we will do for you. First, we will read the first sentence and then we will read the second sentence. We will notice that in the second sentence there is a repeated noun or a pronoun from the first sentence, or there is something refers to something which is existed in the first sentence. So in the second sentence we will omit that noun or a pronoun which refers to something which is existed in the first one. So here in this example we have he, and he here refers to Tom. We will omit he, and we will put who after the noun Tom, which we omit he because of it. So the answer will be this is Tom who or that plays tennis well. Okay, let's consider example number 2. It says, I bought a book, it's very interesting. And he asks us to use which as a relative pronoun. So in the first sentence, we spoke about the book which we bought, and then in the second sentence we said that it is very interesting. So here in the second sentence we have it, and this pronoun it refers to the book we mentioned in the first sentence. So we will omit the pronoun it, and we will put which after the noun which it refers to. So here we have so here in this sentence the noun will be a book, and we will put which after the noun book. So the sentence or the answer will be I bought a book which is very interesting. I bought a book which is very interesting. Okay, let's move to another slide to try to understand the idea more. Okay, here, my dear students, we will have two different examples. So let's consider them. Example number 3 says, Indian elephants live in Asia. Indian elephants have small ears. And he asks us to use which or that as a relative pronoun. So here in the first sentence we spoke about the Indian elephants which live in Asia, and in the second sentence we speak about that these Indian elephants have small ears. So the repeated noun in the second sentence is Indian elephants. We will omit Indian elephants which is existed in the second sentence, and we will put which or that after Indian elephants in the first sentence. So the answer will be Indian elephants which or that have lived in Asia have small ears. Okay, let's see example number 4. Tom plays football. Tom scores lots of goals, and he asks us to use that as a relative pronoun. So here we have Tom in the second sentence, which is repeated from the first one. We will omit it, and then we will put that after Tom, which is existed in the first sentence. So the answer will be Tom that plays football scores lots of goals. Tom that plays football scores lots of goals. Okay, let's move to another slide. In this slide, my dear students, we will have to study the relative pronoun whom. Sorry if I forgot to mention it in the second slide, because it's one of the relative pronouns which we will have to study in this unit. So here in these two examples we will learn how to use whom as a relative pronoun. So let's see these two examples which are written in front of us. The first one says that this is Tom. He had an accident last month. So here in the second sentence we have the pronoun here, subject pronoun here, which refers to Tom in the first sentence. We will omit it as we knew before, and then we will put who after the noun Tom, which we omit he because of it. So the answer will be, this is Tom who had an accident last month. Let me remind you, my dear students, that here in this sentence we can't use whom as a relative pronoun, because we use whom as a relative pronoun if the repeated noun in the second sentence is an object. But here in this example, the repeated noun here is subject of the second sentence, so we have to use the relative pronoun who. But in example number 2, we will use whom, or also we can use who. So let's see it. This is Tom. I first met him 7 years ago. In the second sentence we have him, which is object in the second sentence, and it refers to Tom in the first sentence. So we can use who, or also we can use whom. So the sentence or the answer will be, this is Tom whom or who I first met 7 years ago. This is Tom whom or who I first met 7 years ago. Okay, let's move to another slide to have a different relative pronoun, which is whose. Okay, here in this slide we will have to study the relative pronoun whose. So let's read the examples which are in front of us. First one, Tom hit the dog. His brother is my neighbor. So he asks us to use whose. So here in the second sentence we have the possessive adjective his, which refers to Tom actually. So here we will have to omit the possessive adjective his, and then we will use whose. But take care, my dear students, that we will put whose as a relative pronoun after the noun Tom, which we omit the possessive adjective his because of it. So the sentence or the answer will be, Tom whose brother is my neighbor hit the little boy, or hit the little dog, sorry. Tom whose brother is my neighbor hit the little dog. Okay, let's see example number 2. This is Sarah. Her car was damaged last week. This is Sarah. Her car was damaged last week. So here in the second sentence, the first sentence spoke about Sarah. The second sentence, here we have the possessive adjective her, which refers to the noun Sarah, which is existed in the first sentence. So we will omit the possessive adjective her, and we will put whose after the noun Sarah, which we omit the possessive adjective his because of it. So the answer will be, this is Sarah whose car was damaged last week. This is Sarah whose car was damaged last week. Okay, let's see example number 3. Here we have, I live in a house, its door is green. I live in a house, its door is green. And he asks us to use whose. So take care, my dear students, that we can use whose as a relative pronoun for persons or for things. So here in the first sentence we spoke about the house which we live in, and in the second sentence we said that its door, the door of our house here, is green. So here we have the possessive adjective its, so we will omit it and we will put whose after the noun whose house, sorry, in the first sentence. So the answer will be, I live in a house whose door is green. Whose door is green. Actually, my dear students, in this example, he can ask us to use which instead of whose, and it will give us the same meaning. So let's consider example number four, sorry, and it's a very important example, so please take care of it. Let's read it. I live in a house, its door is green, and he asks us to use which. So here in the second sentence, we also found that the possessive adjective it refers to the house in the first sentence. So we will omit it and we will use a strange expression, but I'll ask you to take care of it well. So let's see the answer, how it could be. The answer will be I live in a house, the door of which, and here the door of which is instead of whose door. The door of which is green. Okay, the door of which is green. So here we use which instead of whose, but it gives us the same meaning. So please take care of this example. Okay, let's move to another slide. In this slide, we will have to discuss a very important part of this unit. This part is titled as relative pronouns with prepositions. Relative pronouns with prepositions. So let's see the example which is written in front of us. This is the spoon I usually eat with it. This is the spoon I usually eat with it, and he asks us to use which as a relative pronoun. So here, and we will find in the second sentence the object pronoun it, which refers to the spoon which is in the first sentence. So we will omit this pronoun here, it, and we will put which after the noun which it refers to here in this example. So we will put it after the noun spoon in the first sentence. So the answer will be, this is the spoon which I usually eat with. Here with in this sentence is a preposition, so we will keep it in its place as it is in the first sentence or in the main sentence. Okay, but we also have another idea to answer this example or answer this question. We can put the preposition before the relative pronoun. Yes, before the relative pronoun. So let's consider, or let's see answer number 2. We can say that this is the spoon with which I usually eat. With which I usually eat. So here in this example, we have a preposition here with us in the second sentence. So we have two ways to answer this question: whether we can keep the preposition in its place or we can put it in front of the relative pronoun. Something also very important here in this example is that we may omit the relative pronoun itself from the two sentences. So we can say the sentence as it is written in the third answer. For example, number 1, we will read it together. This is a spoon I usually eat with. This is the spoon I usually eat with. Here in this answer, we omit the relative pronoun itself, and we said the sentence without it. It's a very correct sentence also. Okay, so here in this example number 1, we have 3 different ways to answer this example. So let's read them well to understand how can we answer this one. Okay, let's move to example number 2. This is Tom. I always send emails for him. This is Tom. I always send emails for him. And he asks us to use who. So here in this example, we have the object pronoun him in the second sentence, which refers to Tom, and we also have a preposition which is for. So we will omit the object pronoun him, and we will put who after Tom in the first sentence, which him refers to. So the answer will be, this is Tom who I always send emails for. And we will keep the preposition in its or in the same place as it is written in the main sentence. We also, but here in this example, my dear students, we can't put for before who, because it is an informal sentence. So we can't say, please take care of this. You can't say, this is Tom for who I always send emails. It's a wrong sentence, or it's an informal sentence. The only way to answer this example is, this is Tom, as it is written, who I always send emails for. Okay, let's consider example number 3. This is Tom, I always send emails for him. The same sentence as example number 2. And he asks us to use whom. Take care that here we will use whom, not who. So the answer will be, this is Tom for whom I always send emails. So here in this answer, we put the preposition before whom. It's right to put the preposition before whom, but it isn't right to put it before who. Okay, we can answer this sentence in another way. Let's see it. This is Tom, who I always send emails for. We put the preposition in the same place of the main sentence as it is. Okay, and if we want to omit the relative pronoun here, so we can say, this is Tom, I always send emails for. Let me remind you, my dear students, that the only case we can omit the relative pronoun from the sentence is when the repeated noun in the second sentence is an object. If the repeated noun in the second sentence is an object, like example number 3, let us read it together. This is Tom, I always send emails for him. The repeated noun here is him, and him is an object, so we can omit the relative pronoun. But if we have if the repeated noun is the subject of the second sentence, we can't omit the relative pronoun. So take care of this point, my dear students, because this is an important question you can find in your exams, for example. Okay, let's move to another slide to have a very important point also here in this unit. In this part of the unit here, we will discuss a very important point here, which is the relative adverbs. The relative adverbs here in this unit are where, when, why. So in the second line, I wrote where equals in, on, at which. To understand the idea, let's see example number 1 to enhance our idea. It says, this is the restaurant, I usually have my lunch in it. I usually have my lunch in it. And he asks us to use where as a relative adverb. So here in the second sentence, we have the object pronoun it, which refers to the restaurant, which is existed in the first sentence. So we will omit this pronoun, and we will put where after the noun restaurant, which is existed in the first sentence. So the answer A will be, this is the restaurant where I usually have my lunch. Take care, my dear students, that here in this answer, we also omitted the preposition in, because we don't have prepositions with the relative adverb where. We don't put prepositions with the relative adverb where. Okay, so if we have the answer A as a question, and he asks us to use which instead of where, so the answer will be, as we written, will be, this is the restaurant which I usually have my lunch in. This is the restaurant which I usually have my lunch in. If we omitted the relative adverb where and put which instead of it, we will restore the preposition in at the end of the sentence, and we also can put this preposition in front of the relative adverb which. So we can also have another answer, which is C. Let's read it together. This is the restaurant in which I usually have my lunch. This is the restaurant in which I usually have my lunch. Okay, we can also answer this question in a different way, and it's also a correct one. We can, as I mentioned before, we can omit the relative pronoun itself if the repeated noun in the second sentence is an object. So we can answer this question as it is written in the sentence D, or the answer D. This is the restaurant I usually have my lunch, but don't forget to put the preposition in at the end of the sentence. Okay. Let's move to another slide to have or to study the relative adverb when. Here in this slide, we will have to study the relative adverb when. As we mentioned before, that when equals on, in, at, which. To understand how can we use when as a relative adverb, let's see example number 1. It says 2010 was the year I got married in it. And he asks us to use when. So here, as we did before, in the second sentence, we have a repeated noun or a pronoun from the first one, which is it. We will omit this pronoun and we will put when after the word year in the first sentence. So the answer will be 2010 was the year when I got married. Yes, I hear most of you saying that here we omitted also the preposition in. Yes, as we did with the prepositions when we use where in the previous slides, we also here omit the preposition if we want to use the relative adverb when. Okay, but in the second sentence, number 2, if he gave us a sentence that says 2010 was the year when I got married, and he asks us to use which. So the answer will be 2010 was the year which I got married in. Don't forget here to restore the preposition in its place as it is written in the main sentence. Or we can also use in front of the relative pronoun as it is written in the last answer. Let's read it together. 2010 was the year in which I got married. In which I got married. The two ways are correct. Okay, let's move to another slide. Here in this slide we have the last relative adverb, which is why. It is equal to for which. So let's consider example number 1. Lack of qualifications was the reason why she didn't get the job. Why she didn't get the job. And he asks us to use for. As we mentioned before, that why equals to for which. So if we want to use which instead of why, don't forget to use for. And we also can use for, as we mentioned before, whether before the relative pronoun or at the end of the sentence. So we have two possible answers to this question. So let's read them. The first one is lack of qualifications was the reason for which she didn't get the job. For which she didn't get the job. And the second one is lack of qualifications was the reason which she didn't get the job for. Which she didn't get the job for. Okay. This was the last point in our grammar section. And in the following slides, you will have some questions. Try to answer them. If you have any problems or any difficulties, please contact us. We will be happy to have your questions. See you in another unit. Goodbye for now.